You work hard, you build wealth, you secure your future, and somewhere along the way you begin to believe that success has insulated you from certain dangers. Financial stability feels like armor. A strong income, a respected title, a beautiful home, and the ability to solve problems with resources can create the illusion of control over every domain of life. Yet beneath that polished surface lies a truth many people do not want to confront. Money does not grant immunity from addiction. In fact, in midlife, especially after 40, financial success can quietly expand vulnerability in ways that are subtle, sophisticated, and deeply misunderstood. When responsibilities are met, when bills are paid on time, and when outward appearances remain intact, problematic substance use can hide in plain sight. The absence of visible chaos becomes a deceptive reassurance. There are no missed mortgage payments, no lost employment, no dramatic collapses. Instead, there is quiet escalation. There is an extra drink after a stressful meeting, a prescription used slightly more frequently than directed, a reliance on something to decompress after carrying the weight of leadership, investments, and expectations. Over time, the brain adapts. Neurobiology does not check your tax bracket before rewiring reward pathways. Dopamine circuits respond to repeated stimulation regardless of income, education, or social status. The belief that intelligence or achievement protects against dependency is itself a cognitive distortion. High performers often equate external success with internal mastery. They assume discipline in business automatically translates to discipline in consumption. This assumption can delay self-monitoring and weaken early corrective action. As explained by Dr. Anna Lembke, addiction is not a moral failure nor a socio-economic phenomenon. It is fundamentally rooted in the brain's reward system and its delicate balance between pleasure and pain. Every surge of pleasure is followed by a compensatory dip. When substances artificially amplify pleasure repeatedly, the baseline shifts. What once felt optional becomes necessary just to feel normal. Financial autonomy can accelerate this process because access is rarely restricted. Privacy is abundant. There is space to conceal, justify, and normalize patterns that might raise alarms in less resourced environments. Midlife success often brings increased independence from oversight. There are fewer authority figures, fewer mandatory evaluations, fewer external guardrails. The structure that once existed in early adulthood gradually fades, replaced by autonomy. Autonomy is empowering, but without intentional accountability, it can become isolating. Isolation reduces feedback. Without feedback, self-deception thrives. Stress compounds the risk. Maintaining status, sustaining investments, managing employees, preserving reputation, and upholding lifestyle expectations generate chronic pressure. The nervous system does not distinguish between noble stress and destructive stress. It simply seeks relief. Alcohol, stimulants, sedatives, and other substances offer rapid modulation of discomfort. They provide predictable, immediate shifts in mood. For individuals accustomed to solving problems efficiently, this reliability can feel like a strategic tool rather than a threat. Yet the brain records repetition, not intention. Over months and years, what began as controlled use can evolve into compulsion. The tragedy is not dramatic collapse, but gradual narrowing of freedom. Financial success can mask that narrowing for a long time. By the time awareness dawns, patterns may already be entrenched, operating quietly behind a facade of stability that appears, from the outside, completely intact. The most dangerous phase is not the beginning, and it is not the visible end. It is the quiet middle, where everything still appears functional. This is where suspense lives, where a person wakes up, attends meetings, signs contracts, manages portfolios, and smiles at social gatherings, while something subtle tightens beneath the surface. The drink at night becomes 2, then 3, yet performance metrics remain strong. A prescription initially taken for legitimate pain or anxiety becomes a dependable companion, yet deadlines are still met. Success creates camouflage. Colleagues interpret productivity as proof of well-being. Family members see provision and assume stability. The individual sees continued achievement and interprets it as evidence of control. But neurobiology is patient. The brain does not announce its adaptations with sirens. It recalibrates quietly. Dopamine receptors downregulate. Baseline mood shifts slightly downward. What once produced pleasure now merely prevents discomfort. There is no dramatic collapse, only a growing reliance that feels rational, even earned. After decades of hard work, a person may feel entitled to relief, to something that takes the edge off relentless responsibility. That sense of entitlement can blend with financial capacity, forming a powerful justification loop. Access expands options. Exclusive environments normalize heavier consumption. Private healthcare can renew prescriptions with minimal friction. Travel, corporate events, and high-pressure negotiations provide socially acceptable contexts for excess. In these settings, misuse does not look like dysfunction. It looks like culture. The absence of immediate external consequences reinforces the illusion of safety. Bills are paid automatically. Assistants manage logistics. Reputation remains intact. Yet internally, tolerance grows. Sleep becomes fragmented. Irritability increases. Motivation subtly declines. Relationships shift in tone. Small compromises accumulate. The suspense lies in the gap between appearance and trajectory. No one sees the slope because it is gradual. Even the individual may not perceive it because each adjustment feels incremental. This is the paradox of high-functioning addiction. Competence delays confrontation. There is also a psychological dimension unique to midlife success. Identity becomes intertwined with achievement. Admitting vulnerability feels like risking status. Leaders often believe they must project certainty, resilience, and composure. Acknowledging escalating substance use can feel incompatible with that self-image. So denial becomes sophisticated. Data is selectively interpreted. Comparisons are made to more extreme cases. As long as there are no arrests, no public scandals, no financial ruin, the behavior is categorized as manageable. But addiction does not require catastrophe to qualify as harmful. It requires only repetition and neuroadaptation. The brain's reward system continues to shift toward a new equilibrium where natural pleasures lose intensity. Hobbies feel less engaging. Time with family feels muted. Work itself may require chemical enhancement to sustain energy or calm. Gradually, the substance moves from accessory to axis. And here is the unsettling truth. The higher the income, the longer this phase can persist without interruption. Resources buffer consequences. Privacy protects secrecy. Social capital discourages confrontation. The suspense deepens because the outside world applauds while the inside world narrows. By the time unmistakable signs emerge, such as escalating health markers, emotional volatility, or irreversible relational damage, the pattern may be deeply embedded. The question becomes not whether success can coexist with addiction, but how long success can conceal it before the internal cost exceeds the external rewards. The turning point begins with a radical shift in understanding. Addiction is not defeated by income, intelligence, or willpower alone. It is managed through awareness, structure, and deliberate accountability. When a person recognizes that the brain's reward circuitry operates independently of social status, the illusion of immunity dissolves. Financial success does not make someone weak, but it can make someone overconfident. Prevention in midlife requires humility. It requires the willingness to examine patterns before they escalate into crises. Early warning signs among high-income individuals are often subtle. Increasing tolerance, using substances to regulate stress rather than to celebrate occasionally, hiding the quantity consumed, planning days around access, rationalizing use because responsibilities remain fulfilled, and experiencing mild withdrawal symptoms such as irritability, restlessness, or sleep disruption when attempting to cut back. These signals are neurological feedback, not character indictments. The brain is communicating adaptation. Ignoring that feedback because life looks successful on paper is a costly mistake. Structured accountability systems become essential, precisely because autonomy increases with financial achievement. Intentional guardrails may include transparent conversations with a trusted partner, scheduled check-ins with a physician who understands addiction medicine, periodic self-assessments, therapy focused on stress regulation, or participation in peer groups where status is irrelevant and honesty is paramount. Accountability is not a sign of weakness. It is a strategic intervention that restores balance between pleasure and pain. Stress management must also evolve. High performers often rely on intensity as fuel, but chronic activation of the stress response drives the search for rapid relief. Developing non-chemical regulation practices, such as consistent exercise, restorative sleep routines, mindfulness training, and meaningful social connection, recalibrates the nervous system without triggering the dopamine spikes that lead to tolerance. This is not about eliminating pleasure, it is about diversifying it. When natural rewards are protected and prioritized, the brain's baseline stabilizes. Education is another pillar. Understanding the neuroscience of addiction reframes the conversation from morality to mechanism. When individuals grasp that repeated exposure to highly reinforcing stimuli shifts the hedonic set point, they become more vigilant about frequency and dosage. They monitor patterns with the same discipline used in financial portfolios. They recognize that prevention is ongoing, not a one-time decision. Ultimately, financial success can become an asset in recovery and prevention rather than a liability. Resources can fund therapy, wellness programs, medical support, and time for reflection. Influence can be used to model transparency and responsible behavior within professional communities. But this transformation begins only when denial is replaced with clarity. The most powerful realization is that true wealth includes psychological freedom. Freedom means the ability to experience pleasure without compulsion and to endure stress without chemical escape. Money can purchase comfort, but it cannot purchase neurobiological exemption. The brain responds to behavior, not bank balances. When individuals in midlife embrace this truth, they reclaim agency. They shift from complacency to conscious stewardship of their mental health. They understand that prevention is not fear-based, it is wisdom-based. And in that wisdom lies resilience, stability, and authentic success that extends beyond income statements into lasting well-being. If you're benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.